How software rots. Uncle Bob. Hello, I'm Chris Athanas. I'm a KMP developer. Tech support said they're coming out. They promised me they're coming out Tuesday and they'll close that thing up so we can both be happy. Today I'm going to be responding to how software rots. And I really don't like this. I haven't looked at this at all yet. I haven't previewed this. I think I've seen this conference a long time ago, but I don't remember what he said. But what I don't like about this rotting thing is first of all, it's anthropomorphizing code to be a living creature, and it's not a living creature. Living creatures do make the code. We create the code, emit the code, but it doesn't rot itself. You can actually take code that was actually stored on cassettes. If the medium is fine, load it into those computers from way back when, and it still works. It'll still work fine. As long as the computer that was designed for that program was still the same and the hardware is still compatible, you can run it. So it doesn't run. What happens is humans in this environment with software that's intercompatible or supposed to be or somehow coupled will move ahead with versions. And this version march ahead is still an undefined industry standard. It's not really. Everyone does it a little differently, and each company, each team even handles it a little differently. So how do you manage that? I think that's what he's talking about. We call that the software rot, but it really doesn't rot. Things move forward in time and move forward. People move things forward in time, and then the software doesn't no longer compatible because it moved forward and it wasn't kept up to date to manage the coupling that was in place. All right, let's see what Uncle Bob has to say about it. Let me.
Have you ever seen software degrade?
I mean, I've seen updates cause incompatibilities, but if the same software on the same computer with no other changes, no, it stays the same, man. What are you talking about?
Have you ever seen the structure of a software system rot like a piece?
Okay, I've seen people update it in a haphazard way that causes because of coupling and because of bad practices and time constraints and lack of skill, lack of understanding that the old team is gone. You can't talk to them, and they went through the similar process. So we don't really know exactly how this thing's put together because there's lots of coupling and everything's all related with other things. The documentation is minimal because that wasn't part of the ticket. That wasn't part of the thing. There's no test because that wasn't part of it. We just had to get the market quickly. And that team, they got their skill sets. They did their 2 years at that company and then moved on. And they're no longer available. And this is what you've been hired on to work with. And I love how DevTools says DevTools made simple this guy. I like how he puts this complicated code. He always puts this sorting. I think it's a sorting algorithm. He always puts this code as being complicated. Okay, let's keep
Piece
going.
of bad meat getting
No, it doesn't. No, that's a bad metaphor, Uncle Bob.
worse and worse and worse with time. How can that happen? Software is not a biological substance that bacteria can invade. Okay. How is it that software systems rot with time, becoming ever more tangled and ever more corrupt? How does that happen?
Well, it doesn't just do it on its own. People are doing it under certain incentives and constraints that allow for that type of engineering and problem solving to occur. It was a solution for that moment. They wanted to keep their job. That he told his boss it was going to be 2 points on this ticket, and it's turned into 6 because the company he's at has mistakenly converted points to time. He's behind, so he's gonna get it in there. He's gonna get that ticket done, Bob. He's gonna get that ticket done. And does anybody go back and look at it? Well, they might, but at least he got the ticket on time.
Well, obviously, it's it's us who's doing it. You know, our fingers are on the keyboard. We are the bacteria that rot the code.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Why? Why do we rot the code? No, nobody wants to rot the code.
Okay, I gave him the reasons. Let's see what he says. We have time constraints. We have skill constraints. We have personnel. We have design constraints. We have. Was this system designed to be updated, extended, and modified, changed, readable, understandable, debuggable, maintainable, most monitorable? It wasn't. Well, it's gonna be a lot harder to fix it then. Was there tests for this thing? Are they testing the right thing? Are they just testing some fragile implementation to understand the concept, which is pretty normal for people writing tests? They tested the implementation interface. What are you talking about testing interface? What are you talking about?
Why do we rot the code? And I'll tell you why. It's really easy. How many of you have brought code up on a screen and you look at it and say, ah, it's rotten. It's awful. I should clean it. And your next thought is, I'm not touching it.
Same thing, because of coupling.
Because you know if you touch it, you will break it. And if you break it,
you own
it
it.
Becomes yours.
That's right. That's correct.
So you
that, and another reason why we created these hacky solutions, because of this type of mindset that Bob was bringing up.
Walk away. Not me. I'm not going to be the one to touch that code. It's somebody else can clean that code. If this is the way you react,
clean it. I don't know what you mean. Clean it, but like update it, change it, modify, make it better, fix a bug. Oh yeah, this is what you're hired on for. Someone's gonna have to do it. He just says you step away, just don't do it. What do you mean? No, that was you were assigned that, Bob. You just don't walk away and say I don't want to touch it. No, that was a ticket you pulled. You got to get in there. And Bob's like, no, I'm not going to do it. It's like, no, you won't be at this company longer, Bob.
Then the only thing that can happen to that code is that it will rot. No one will ever do anything to make it better.
Well, things around it might rot or change, but the code itself, if you don't touch it, nothing changes, Bob. I guess it's mixing the metaphors improperly.
The only thing that will happen to it is that people will go into that code when they absolutely must and do the absolute least to fix a bug or add a feature and get out as soon as they can because they're terrified. And I want you to think about how wildly irresponsible it is to be afraid of the thing you created.
I mean, this is normal. We are a lot of this code was written under very harsh conditions. That, like, if we didn't get this version out today or this weekend, the investor's going to pull the plug, and we're not going to have paychecks next week. So guess what, Bob? Decisions were made.
To have allowed it so far out of your control that you don't know what it's going to do when you change a line of code. Has anybody had that fear?
That's industry standard, Bob.
God, I don't know what's going to happen if I change that line. Yeah. It could be anything. Who's had the experience of changing an obvious, simple line of code, just clear as day, and it did exactly what you thought it was going to do, it fixed whatever problem or added new whatever feature, but something over there broke. Some completely unrelated part of the system broke. Why?
Yeah, because the system was not designed for it to be updated like that. It was updated. It was created in a way that was super performant, and they got to cut the corners to get the performance out of it. Because when we had it going through the system, through the message queue, it wasn't gonna be fast enough. It wasn't. Our service level agreement wasn't being met. So we hooked it up directly, Bob, and we hooked it up every single place, every single person. We hooked it up directly, Bob, because we needed to get that tiny little bit of performance out of it to meet the service level agreement. And we said, well, whoever comes on is going to have to update this in all the 16 places. And all the people said yes. And they kept the contract. And the company moved forward. That guy left. He's like, I can't deal with this. You're now hired on. 16 places is where we go, Bob. What are you going to bring it up? Are you going to try and fight that battle? That guy, the last guy who was here lost, and his solution was to quit. Are you going to fight that battle, Bob?
Because of some strange, weird dependency that had crept through the code, and that weird dependency was the outcome of a bunch of rot.
Well, no, Bob. It was not the result of rot. It was the result of decisions practical decisions at the time that had to be made, or ignorance, or a combination of both. Not rot. What are you talking about, man?
How do you prevent that? How do you stop the rot? Well, you've got to get rid of the fear. You can't stop the rot if you're afraid.
Okay, right, but what are we afraid of, man? When we say no, we need to go change the code, they're going to go, no, we have a trade show coming up. You're going to fix the code just like the last guy did, how he had it set up in 16 places, because we don't have the amount of time it's going to take to figure out how to keep this all decoupled and meet the service level agreements, Bob.
So you've got to get rid of the fear. How do you get rid of the fear?
So what are you supposed to say in that position? Because what are you going to say? No? You're going to say, okay, man, Well, hopefully in the future we can adjust it. So they'll go, we'll think about it.
Well, imagine that you have.
This is all companies are doing this. So this is why there's some great opportunity if you can get away from this kind of baloney, and create applications that are extendable from the start, or at least plan to do that and realize that if you're going to do a cut corners application, that it's going to cause problems, and before you can get enough funding and time and energy to team together to do a decoupled, asynchronous, fully tested, modified. Bob, sometimes we got limits, man. We don't have unlimited budgets, Bob. Not all places can have the funding that you seem to be accustomed to. Let's keep going.
Had a suite of tests. A suite of tests that you trust with your life. Literally, you trust this suite of tests with your job.
Well, that's nice to have that. It's nice to have a suite of tests that was designed in that way. But welcome to the real world, Bob, where things aren't always like that. We may be the ones that come in and have to convince people to do that. But how long is that going to take, Bob, to understand their system and to create a new one and to put the proper stuff, the harness around it, and to convince them that that's the right way to go when they can limp along without having to do that and still add features and limp along with the current thing?
Then you look at the code
That's
on the
hard. That's a hard sell, man. How do you tell them that they're better off? They would be better off if they take the hit now, take their system that they have now, which you have customers for, hopefully, and do one that's more robust. That's not, you haven't done. You've already got the proof of concept. Now you want to build a production level app to put all that stuff in there. How do you convince them, Bob? You seem to be skipping that step. That's the hard step. If the fear thing is from like telling them, how do you get them to do that and not allow them to lose your job? Because a lot of people lose their jobs when you bring that up, Bob.
screen and you say, well, man, that's messy. Somebody should clean it. I think I'll clean it. And you change the name of a variable and you run the tests. Oh, it didn't break anything. Okay. I'll break that function in half. Now it's 2 functions. Run the tests. Ah, that passed. Good. It didn't break anything. Take that function and move it into that class over there. Run the tests. Whew, broke. Put it back. Okay. Oh, yeah, green. All right. Runs again. Oh, I see what I did.
I guess he's talking about the Gilded Rose exercise, how you're trying to refactor a legacy code into being testable. Man, I don't know. I've done that. It's just better to leave it alone and start over with it that from the beginning. Using that as a proof of concept and the ideas and concepts and flows and screens and logins and data entities and how they're all related, all that stuff, except make it robust with all the testing, all the stuff, all the things added on at that point with that engineering focus. Because one is the exploratory, right? Which you don't want to have a lot of tests because you're going to slow you down because we don't know which way to go yet. But once you got product market fit and get customers, then when do you decide to do that? And then you do how you decide to do that. But once the decision's made, then you do this refinement process where you're going to bolster everything and take this particular solution and we're going to make it robust and tested and scalable and all the things that you have to do, super secure and all that stuff. And that's more refined, and that's going to really make things more rigid. How the design of the thing is being more rigid, so you're going to have more tests to support that structure. So it's like exploring out, then you find the solution, then you dig down roots.
Move it over here.
Those are two different engineering practices.
Tests. If you had those tests, cleaning would be easy.
Well, I mean, he says cleaning. When I hear cleaning, I think what I hear him saying is modifying, updating, extending, changing somehow, and then monitoring, debugging, all that stuff. I think that's what he means. Make it more debuggable, all those little different features. So I think that he means by cleaning. But it's like. It's like when you're like, this is a good metaphor, is like when you're building a house, you don't want to necessarily clean as you go, although you can clean as you go. It's usually at the end, it's all the cleaning is done. Then we do the thorough cleaning at the end. That's be like, I don't know, the metaphor is not that great. Really, it's a two-phase thing. The product market fit, you're going to make a mess, things will be ugly, things aren't going to work 100%. There's lots of edge conditions, but you're going to find a happy path. And then once you get enough customers, then there's phase 2. Version 2 of the app, where that's when you make it robust and all this other stuff, where you really concentrate on that thing. You're not really trying to change the app every 5 seconds for a new customer feature. You're trying to make it You have now a focused in application, and you want to focus in on creating that as well as good as possible. That's like a two hemispheres. And he comes in, I think, after version 1 is already created. He comes in to make it robust and solid and all that stuff. So I think that's where he comes in. He's not the adventure driven guy. He's the guy that comes in after the adventures, found the customers and all that stuff. And now he wants to. We need to make it, more bulletproof applications. I think that's what he's coming in for.
Natural. You would want to do it. It would make your life easier if you had those tests. Why don't you have them?
Well, because they weren't there from the beginning, because we were on a different mission at that time. So when you start the version 2 with all these tests and stuff, yeah, you start from the beginning, start all the way from the bottom, you do the tests all the way up.
Okay, everybody can say, oh, well, I'm on a legacy system and nobody wrote tests. Fine. But are you making the problem better or worse today?
Well, it's not up to us, Bob. A lot of it's not up to us. A lot of it's up to the business. Do we have the ability to pay for this thing, or the time and energy to do it, or the skill set to do to understand what the business is doing, and then to do it again with the robustness and all the stuff that we want to do, and to make it extendable? It's the skill set, man. A lot of it's about the taste, what not to put in there, what not to include, the curation, and all this other stuff. Yeah. All right. Give me a like and subscribe, and I'll continue my rants if you want.